Welcome to Marketecture, where you can get smart fast with in-depth interviews of technology executives. I'm Ari Paparo, and I'm joined today by Ajit Thupil, who is the Chief Product Officer for Bombora. Ajit, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Ari. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I've worked with Bombora in the past. I'm pretty familiar with it, but maybe some people are not. So tell us, what is Bombora?
So Bombora, we've been around for a while. Things started in the 2014, 2015 timeframe. We celebrated our 10-year anniversary last year.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I've been around for a year and a half, so I can't take credit for the entire longevity of having been here. But one thing that has been constant through all of this time is our focus on the B2B space. And we think it's sufficiently different from everything else that is there, sufficiently interesting, and wanted to kind of double click on that particular space, serving both the needs of the sales folks as well as the marketing folks. So we have, from our point of view, we want to make sure that we make signals and insights available to both the sales teams and the marketing teams so that they're able to reach the right accounts at the right time with the right messaging. And this focus has been steadfast for us through this whole period.
Right. That makes sense. So it's interesting you bring up the sales force. It's not typically the way people think about digital advertising is interfacing with the sales force. A lot of what you do is oriented around that, around generating leads and moving people in the funnel.
100%. That's what makes B2B different from B2C. If you think about the complexity of that whole supply chain and how things are bought and sold in the B2B world compared to B2C, there's long sales cycles, there are complex sales cycles, there are multiple parties involved. So making sure that you are able to first, if you're a rep, for example, that comes in on a Monday and has to figure out who I need to call that particular week, it's an expense to make sure that you are, and you want to make sure that you're directing that effort towards those right accounts and the right people. And so you want to have a good data asset that allows you to do that and prioritize who you are calling. And at the same time, you want to have your marketing teams giving air cover to the sales folks, because when these guys are calling your these prospects, you want the marketing teams to be reaching out to these same folks, be it through email marketing, be it through programmatic channels, maybe it through social, making sure that as these calls are coming through, as your SDRs are calling, you're also these same folks are seeing your brand show up, the value proposition of your brand show up in front of their eyes.
Right. And we sort of skipped over this, but the primary product you're offering, I believe, is data, right? Or is there activation? Is there reporting? Give us the kind of the surface point, how your data is used.
So we are definitely a data-first company. So our focus has been on data, and that is something that we continue to lean on. That will be a pillar that we will stand on. In terms of activation, in terms of other things that we have, we allow for activation using our data through all of the programmatic and social channels that folks are used to, all the big DSPs, all the big social networks. So all of that is available. From a measurement standpoint, we also offer folks in certain platforms, and it's continuing to grow, where we offer capabilities around measurement. So you can come back and see if you have a certain set of accounts that you've targeted, being able to measure that. Did you actually reach those accounts? Who did you reach within those accounts? That's also a capability that we have. And lastly, because we are so focused on data, and we have this whole other thread that's focused on the sales use case, you'll see our data also available through a lot of the sales enablement platforms as well.
Right. Sales enablement meaning what are examples of sales enablement?
So think about anything that serves contacts.
Right.
So if you have a platform like Lucia or Cognizant that has contacts, you'll see our data available through those platforms as well.
Okay, great. Let's talk about the granularity, or like how people use the data, because I think this is kind of interesting. Like, is it, if I log into a DSP, like the trade desk or whatever, your data's there. Are people using it sort of by category? Like, I want to reach small businesses or, businesses involved in agriculture, or are they using it more like ABM, where they give you a list of specific companies they want to reach?
As with most of these answers, once prompted, the answer is both of the above, never one of the above, right? So we serve both sides. We have a syndicated taxonomy that's available off the shelf that you can go into a DSP of your choice and you'd see that taxonomy available, and you can go buy. That could be about buying extra IT decision makers in extra large companies that are in the construction industry. That could be, for example, a use case. But also frequently, and this is, we get this all the time, and a large part of our business is geared around this, which is around custom audiences. So wherein very much what you mentioned, a client, a brand, an advertiser, an agency coming in with a list of accounts, layering on top of that any demographic attributes they want. So they might say, here are 10,000 accounts that I like to target, but I would want to layer on, say, functional group marketing, functional group IT, functional group finance. I also want to add some level of seniority. I want to add, say, directors and above. And that's the group that I want to target. And I want to target them on the DSP of their choice. That is also something that we enable.
Right. Okay. So there's some nuances to B2B that I want to ask you about because I'm a nerd about this sort of stuff. So the first question is, one of the problems in B2B marketing is that the size of the companies are so different. So if I spread my budget sort of by number of employees, I'm going to reach some General Motors a million times more than I'm going to reach, a startup. What's your thought on that, and does your product help with that?
Yeah, so because of the granularity that we provide in terms of how you can design that audience that you want to target, you can kind of get around that. Absolutely, if you're targeting, call it General Motors or an Amazon or a Walmart, you'll end up in a broad basis, you're going to end up reaching a lot of people. But if you start layering on certain demographic traits, you start now narrowing down that list of people that you end up reaching. And further on, you can also add other factors around geography to say, I want to focus on a certain division that I know is in Ohio versus Seattle. And then you start adding further granularity that allows people to focus on a certain segment of people. But absolutely, I think in the long term, we also offer, we work with some of our partners, especially on the measurement side, that allows frequency capping at the account level. So to make sure that you don't run into that same problem that you just referenced.
Right. And my second nerdy question is, you're reaching, let's say, an IT manager in Cleveland, Ohio, blah, blah, blah. Do you still reach them when they're checking the internet, from a Starbucks or from their house?
Yes and no. So because, and this now I'm going to go into the nerdy identity piece of how we do things.
Yeah, I wanted to go to identity.
Yeah. So if you are in a Starbucks, so if you're an IT manager in a Starbucks, as long as you're using a laptop that has a certain identifier, or you're interacting with a website that has identifiers that we have resolved back to being an IT manager in, call it Akron, Ohio, and that's what the advertisers want. Absolutely. So you might be in a Starbucks, you might be in a Marriott, wherever you are, we will be able to do that. But what we will do is, if we're not using the IP address from a location like that, we would obviously then we screen those out to make sure that all these small businesses or kind of social gathering sites are not included in our targeting criteria.
Right. And how sophisticated are your customers in like these things? Do they say, well, I want to pay more if they're in the office. I want to pay less if they're in a Starbucks. I want to use data differently based on certainty. what's going on in the marketplace for B2B?
I think it is an evolution, right? And I think you will see a spectrum of folks, some of them starting to dip their feet in terms of making sure that they want to be able to see who they can reach. In some cases, they may come and set a certain frequency cap or set a certain targeting criteria, see how it manifests on the DSP, run the campaign for some time, and then optimize their targeting criteria based on what they see. And there will be others that are very prescriptive on exactly what they want. And they're going to come in and say, I want this, and I want this maybe split up into 5 different audiences, because I am going to have different ways in which I'm going to reach those with different messages, with different CPMs, all of that being implemented on the programmatic channel. So you'd see clients that you run into with that level of sophistication as well.
Yeah, and I'd imagine if I'm really fine tuning my model and I'm saying, like, I want this IT manager in Cleveland, CPM isn't that important. I'm willing to pay a pretty high CPM to reach that person.
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that differentiates B2B, because typically, I mean, I don't know if this happens, but likely nobody is choosing on their CRM software based on what they saw on TikTok. Or
you never know. I see a lot of B2B ads on TikTok, because that's how I roll.
I'm hoping that that's all brand related, not necessarily like a conversion. They're not focusing on conversion there. But a lot of this B2B spend, the B2B conversions are, call it tens of thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of thousands, in remote cases, millions of thousands of dollars. So much more complex. You're trying to reach not a single person, but the decision is being made through some sort of a buying committee that might have 10, 15, 20 people, each of them wanting something slightly different. You might have the IT person who wants to focus on security. You might have marketing person focused on usability. You might have the finance person on cost. Each of them kind of getting their own vote through the decision-making process. All of this is going on for months, multiple quarters, maybe in some cases a year and a half, 2 years. So when you think of all that and you're able to find that person that you want to target, I mean, typically you're not as budget conscious as you would be if you're trying to reach a person in a Starbucks.
Yeah, and I guess we sort of skipped over this. We're not just talking about targeting companies, but also titles or roles. How do you infer that stuff? How do you figure out what roles people have?
Yeah, so again, there are 2 different ways in which we are able to get to that answer. One is we work with a lot of data vendors in the industry to bring in data assets that give us that level of granularity that we are able to translate back into an identifier, the functional area that they're in, the seniority they're in as well. And also we have a footprint of about 5,000 plus publishers that we work with, on whom we have our first party tags. So we are able to interpret based on content consumption across all of these sites. We're able to model where we think they fall both in the functional spectrum as well as in the seniority spectrum.
Right. That makes sense. So I have to ask, because it's 2025, what's the role of AI in this world? I imagine it seems like if customers know exactly the people they want, maybe they don't need AI. They're just working through a list of ABM. What's your perspective? What's your customer's perspective on that?
Yeah, and from where I sit, it's probably every 2 days I get a link or something that somebody pings me saying about some platform launching something agentic within their platform about how they can optimize campaigns or whatever it might be. So for us, it is we have some hearty debates internally about what our role in that supply chain needs to be. And for us, if you think about a company of our size, it is important to retain some amount of focus. And as we think about our role in the industry, and if you think about where all these models are going, all of them are going to rely on some quality data. You're not going to be able to train these models on substandard data and expect superlative outcomes. So you need to have people, and I think that it's going to be value for people who have that maniacal focus on quality data, and that is something that we are going to continue to focus on in terms of making sure that for the models that are being run on these platforms where our clients are interacting with, that we offer our data continuing to have the quality standards that they have come to be used to in the shape, form that they are comfortable using, as well as on all the locations that they have where they are interacting with data. So with that focus, our role on AI and being able to maybe have agents of our own takes a little bit of a backseat, but not a huge one. So we want to make sure that where we have a right to play, that we do play and win. But we also think that we should make sure that we give sufficient lubrication using our data to all the other places where AI and AI agents are going to be used.
Right. Yeah, I can certainly see uses for AI here and like coming up with your ICP and identifying companies and things like that. But a lot of it's ultimately going to be deterministic.
But 100%, right? I think there's going to be because of the amount of spend that we're talking about, I think there is going to be a largely deterministic aspect. But I think even in our world, if you think about, let me take an example of around frequency capping that you brought up. There is a world in which you say that, yep, hey, you client came up with these 10,000 accounts that you wanted to reach. Based on the campaign performance that we are seeing that there is these 10 accounts have not been clicking on your ads, but these other 10 accounts have been actively clicking on your ads. You might be able to actively then figure out how you qualify and disqualify accounts based on feedback that is coming and using AI models that is able to understand and then deliver towards outcomes. So even in that world, I think there is a role that we get to play in terms of what we think is qualifying IDs against that audience. That's an area, for example, where you would see us leaning in.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's transition to our lightning round. Relatively quick questions, relatively quick answers. So what's Bombora's number one competitive advantage?
I think our core data asset, our publisher partnerships that we have across the ecosystem to be able to get that source of truth on what people are researching. I think that's definitely our strongest asset.
And what's your biggest challenge in the market?
I think for us, in a lot of cases, it is about making people realize that B2B is different and what role that we have to play in the market, and being able to bring them along that entire journey. I think that's a challenge.
We ask this of everyone, so don't be insulted. So why won't the big guys like Google and Meta ultimately crush you?
I think from a aspect of specialization, I think the assets that we have and the comfort that we have around data is not something that we have necessarily seen, especially on the third-party side with these larger platforms. They seem to be more comfortable with first-party data. They're kind of closing their walls, not opening their walls. So, and from that standpoint, I see them having the need to work with parties such as ourselves, less so kind of competing with one of us.
Right. All right. The last question. If Bombora was an animal, what animal would it be?
I think that maybe this is the nerd in me coming out, saying an owl would be great.
Owl. Okay.
Yeah, it's smart. I think they can see in the night as well, so they can see through darkness. So hopefully, as we live in this, call it uncertain times, having that particular skill will be helpful.
All right, great. You heard it here first. Ajit Thupil, the CPO of Bombora, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ari.